This episode of Wild Florida is brought to you by the Charlotte Harbor Environmental Center. Tonight we explore some trees in the dark, and we find out just how bad a chameleon's bite can be.
Oh, it hurts.
I'm on the prowl, hunting for an invasive lizard that is a master of stealth. Searching near the southwest part of Lake Okeechobee, I'm putting my eyes to the ultimate test, hunting for the veiled chameleon. After searching in the dark for several hours, we managed to find both a male and a female chameleon. Now let's check them out.
So this here is a very angry veiled chameleon. Now, veiled chameleons are normally found around Yemen and Saudi Arabia, but because these guys are really popular in the pet trade, you can now find them all over South Florida. Now, veiled chameleons can be found as invasive species in not just Florida, but Hawaii as well, on the island of Maui. But obviously, South Florida has a much bigger area for these animals to cover. Now, the cool thing about veiled chameleons is that you might notice they have this beautiful crest on the tops of their heads. Now, that crest or crown is actually called a casque, and both males and females have it. And it gets larger as they grow. There's actually bones inside of this. Veiled chameleons have surprisingly simple and basic skeletons. They are really delicate animals, and of course living in treetops they can be delicate because they have a lot of cover from potential predators there. And you'll notice he's reaching out for any possible branches with those cool feet that they have. Their feet happen to actually be 5 different fingers all joined together, fused into 2 larger fingers, and we call this zygodactyly. Now, zygodactyl animals include parrots and chameleons, and that they have front-facing toes and back-facing toes, just like what our little veiled chameleon has. Now, this is a male, and you can see the males are a lot bigger than, if I can have our female here, compared to our little female veiled chameleon. And you can see them side by side. Their colors are pretty different. The male is much more brightly colored than our little green female. The males also have these blue stripes, and I'll let her crawl on me. And on the backs of our male's hind feet, they have these little nubs. Those are called spurs. And those spurs help them grip onto the female when it is time to breed. Now, veiled chameleons are a very rapidly reproducing species. The males live about 8 years, the females only live about 5 years, but it only takes 5 months after they hatch for them to reach maturity, which means they can start having their own babies at that time. Now, the eggs, they'll lay about 85 eggs per clutch, and they can do this multiple times all throughout their breeding season in the springtime. Now, those eggs actually go through an interesting process called diapause, which means that they can wait until the temperature is just right for them to start hatching. And the temperature does influence these animals onto if they're going to be boys or girls. Another really distinct thing about chameleons is their eyes. They have what's called stereoscopic vision, and that means that one eye can look at one thing and the other eye looks at something else. This helps them to look for bugs whenever they're climbing in the treetops.
I was so blown away by how cool these lizards are that I forgot to mention a few things while I was in the field handling them. Let's talk some more about their eyes. After locating a tasty-looking bug with their cool stereoscopic eyes, veiled chameleons are able to launch their sticky tongue at a target. The tip of their tongue is cup-shaped and acts as a suction cup onto their prey, and that tongue can be almost twice as long as their body length, minus their tail. In the Wild Florida episode about brown anoles, we mentioned that their cousin, the green anole, can change colors, just like the chameleon. For a long time, it was thought that chameleons and anoles changed colors through a specialized type of pigment cell called a chromatophore, just like an octopus. However, in 2014, some scientists were surprised to learn that instead of chromatophores being present like they had assumed, instead, the chameleon cells were lined with a nanocrystal lattice structure that the chameleon's skin moved to change the angle of light reflected by the crystals. similar to how a prism can refract light or how rain can refract light to create a rainbow. We collected these chameleons and passed them off to a friend who sells them for a living, which is a great way to motivate people to remove these animals from the wild. But some people collect these animals and move them to new areas in a controversial and illegal practice called chameleon ranching. This helps this invasive species spread much faster. The sad part is that because these animals are already so well established in Florida, and with the assistance of chameleon ranchers, they won't be removed from the ecosystem anytime soon. While it doesn't appear that veiled chameleons have a negative effect on any other native Florida wildlife, except for the bugs they eat, we might not find out the negative effects they have until years after it's already too late.
Now, when a veiled chameleon feels threatened, a lot of times they'll puff up themselves. You can see she's pretty skinny right now. That was an owl.